Now listen, obviously, flying's a big one. A lot of people feel bad about flying. I'm no different. And the thing is, I enjoy it. I enjoy flying. I love all the pomp and the faff at the airport. I quite enjoy the pat-down. I like it. The one bit I don't love is when I get onto the plane and I have to turn right and then walk through business class on my way to my bit. Because I lead a very lucky and privileged life, and this is really the only time in my life when I'm surrounded by people who think they're better than me and who can back it up. So if I'm honest, what I do is I release whatever greenhouse gases I've managed to store up throughout the day. Not very proud of that. But I was offered a gig recently. I was offered a gig to perform for the sustainability department of a big organisation, big company in Berlin. And they rang me up and they said, would Mr. Goldsmith like to fly business class? And I assured them, in no uncertain terms, that Mr. Goldsmith would, yes, make that happen, yes, do it now, immediately, please, yes. And if I'm totally honest, by the time I had been carried onto the plane by the pilot, gently sat down in my seat, tousled my hair, nothing overtly sexual, definitely a spark. By the time I'd been offered a champagne cocktail for takeoff, don't mind if I do, metal cutlery, because obviously terrorists can't afford business class. I have to say, when I had undergone the treatment, I turned into the monster I despise. I'm so ashamed. By the time you rabble walked past on your way to cattle class... Sorry, that's what we call you. You wouldn't get it. You walked past with your laughable single piece of hand luggage. Really? I genuinely caught myself having this thought. I sort of thought out loud. I thought, maybe I have worked that little bit harder. It was awful. But I got to the show, did the show, and afterwards, one of the producers said to me, and I've checked this since in detail, it's absolutely true. One of the producers said, did you know that business class travel, business class flight, generates 3 times the emissions of regular economy class travel? And that's absolutely true. It's 3 times worse for the climate. 3 times worse the emissions, because obviously you're using more space on the plane, the seat's much heavier, all the stuff they bring for you adds extra weight, plus your pockets are full of conflict diamonds, you know. So I thought, I'm going to use that knowledge as one of my little steps in the right direction. I thought, from now on, no more business class for me. I thought I will use it as an opportunity for some climate communication. The next time I get offered business class, I will decline on climate ethics grounds, because I tell you what, flying may feel fantastic. Business class may feel sensational, but nothing feels as good, gives you so much internal prestige as walking through business class, knowing that you were offered it, but declined on climate ethics grounds. And I made that vow the moment I got home. Thank you very much. I've been Stuart Goldsmith. Cheers.
Great, thanks very much. I'd like to welcome to the stage Stuart Goldsmith.
Thank you very much. Hello, thank you. Obviously, that was excruciating, sitting and watching myself back. So huge thanks to those of you that laughed. Much appreciated.
Great. All right, so we've got a few questions for Stu. And question 1 is, why does comedy belong in climate conversations?
I think everything belongs in climate conversations. I can never attribute this quote, but I heard this a couple of years ago, and I firmly believe it. What do we do about the climate crisis? And the answer is everything. We do everything about it. We need everything. We need all our special skills, all our powers, all our skill sets. And so comedy, I think, is definitely, it's one of the skills that we can use. And also, there is something brilliant and magical, as we know, about comedy that lets pressure out of a situation, that lets you feel less alone and sort of you sense a communion with people. If we can laugh at some of the awful things that we do and that we all know we do, then we feel less kind of claggy and secretive and guilty and hopeless and full of dread. So I think comedy is incredibly useful for those sorts of conversations.
Absolutely. What can climate communications learn from comedians?
Well, I think that there's all sorts of different climate communications, and I think that trying to inform people is incredibly difficult because we all have to do this dance. As soon as you mention the climate crisis in any context, people sort of freeze up because we know we're complicit. We go, oh God, don't look at me. I don't want to reveal that I flew to Portugal on a holiday, or I don't want to sort of give away that I do these climate confessions in the show. I solicit confessions from people. And I was doing some out here earlier on, little kind of vox pops. And someone said that they tumble dry their pajamas before they put them on during the winter. And they just look really ashamed. And I love that. I love that admission, that candor, because we know that we do things wrong and we have to be able to admit it. And I think in terms of any kind of climate communication, it's really important not to scold people. You can't tell people off. I can't go on, tell me all your worst stuff you do, and then go, everyone get them, because that would be completely antithetical to the mission, really. And the mission is to change the brand, if you like, of climate. When I first started talking about the climate crisis on stage, I sort of thought that people would be excited to hear about it. I naively thought I'd go out and say, oh, you know you're really terrified about the climate, right? And that people would go, oh, finally, someone's talking about it. But instead, of course, they looked at me much like many of you are looking at me now, like, oh, God, the pubs are open. And I think that actually, to learn to sort of steer and to navigate a climate conversation whereby you can say to people, look, we've got until the end of the decade to reduce our carbon emissions globally by 40%, but we're currently predicted a 10% rise, and that's going to be catastrophic. Now, that's some big, heavy news to swallow, and I don't mean to make anyone feel sad or upset about it, but it is true. But I don't think we're going to get there by sort of individually feeling awkward and awful about it. I think we have to be able to have the conversation. And I think the brand of climate, inescapably, is sort of like, oh, either it's nice, well-meaning older people in North Face, or hippies gluing themselves to the road. And I really want to change that, because all of us should be the brand of climate. Climate should be, oh, this opportunity that we have to try and seize grasp the nettle and go, how are we all going to fix this? Because no matter what social justice issue you care about, climate's going to make it worse. It underpins everything, and it's hitting us already. There are people really sort of on their knees at the moment because of the climate crisis. Just in the last heat wave, I think we lost 3 people in Spain who otherwise wouldn't have died yesterday. Yeah. So it's happening, and it's going to happen more and more and more. And we really need advertising and marketing and any kind of communication to bear that in mind and to sort of accept that reality and strategize on how we can talk about it without making people feel so bad or so scared that they no longer want to engage with it at all, which is what's happened throughout my life.
I mean, I'd like to hear some climate good news from time to time. I just feel that, it's like we get like almost climate fear fatigue.
Sure.
It's been going for such a long time. We've been told, let's say, since way before the 90s, but it's definitely since the 90s.
100%.
You've got to change.
Yep.
It's all gone to hell. In fact, it's too late for everyone.
Yes. So it's really essential that I don't talk about doom.
Yeah.
And I don't talk about doom. I've hit you with some heavy numbers early doors. But absolutely, we have to talk about we have to talk about solutions instead of problems. So there are loads of incredibly positive, simple things that people can do. From the individual level, where you can change your bank, you can, change your diet, and those don't have to be. You don't have to go vegan. Obviously, it's better if you do. I'm not. Fuck that. But you should be. But even if you're not going to turn vegan, then you could do meat-free Mondays.
Yeah.
And you're only going to want to do that if you understand about, for example, beef. But like cows are a colossally, uniquely inefficient animal. So if you just switch from beef to pork, you can reduce your food emissions by 20% because beef is so horribly inefficient. I've got to do that joke tomorrow in Llandilo in Wales, where they're big beef farmers, and I'm quite scared about it, but I'm going to do it. So you can focus on those individual solutions. You can travel more consciously. You can thermally insulate your house just for the sake of saving your bills. You don't have to even believe in the climate crisis. You can just make things more efficient, for sure. And then there's all the way from those to the huge radical things that we know we need. We need enormous legislative intervention. We need COVID-era levels of urgency. We need to ground all the planes tomorrow. Now, we're not going to do that. We all want to go on holiday this summer, and I'm sure we're going to fly there. So whilst we really need to do that, we have to sort of accept, okay, we're probably not going to do that. I saw a tweet that said, any solution you have that begins with the phrase, if everyone adjust, is no solution at all, because everyone won't just, So we need all of these different types of solutions, and we need to focus on them, and we need to make them feel sort of acceptable and amenable. I've got this material about veganism. I'm not a vegan. The material is about how I'm grudgingly probably going to end up being a vegan against my will, not because of the ethics of it, but because of the crazy inefficiencies of the land use. And I've had people come up to me afterwards and go, that's the most I've ever considered veganism.
Wow.
Because I'm not standing there going, you're bad, you've got to change. But instead I'm going, oh God, I'm going to have to change. This hurts, this is awful. To actually look at one of those solutions.
Great. Could you tell us about how being authentically vulnerable is a gateway to connection?
You said that very smoothly. Did you just think of it? I think the main way, one of the main ways that comedians communicate with audiences, and I think that anyone can learn from this, particularly if you're in marketing, advertising, the reality is when you communicate a message with someone, it goes in better, you build a sort of bridge, a sort of an elastic relationship with them, if you're vulnerable, if you're authentic. And I think you do that if you're authentic, and often the hotline, the kind of the fastest route to authenticity is to be vulnerable. I think you need to be vulnerable, you need to be specific. On a personal basis, I make sure in my material that I'm always the victim of the joke. My hypocrisy is always the one that gets skewered first. You know, I love flying. I'm not up there going, hey guys, you've got to stop flying. I'm going, oh God, I fly, it's awful, I feel bad. But here's a way, if you just decline business class for the rest of your life, that makes a big impact, if you're lucky enough to be offered it, you know. So I try to make myself the butt of the joke and to make my hypocrisies front and center and kind of skewer those first. And I think also, part of the vulnerability is in admitting that you do something bad. That's why I love doing the climate confessions. Because, like I did give you an example of one. I did a gig 2 years ago at the Edinburgh Festival. I did a big run of my first climate comedy show. And I would make sure that I always had a reusable cup on stage, but like a coffee cup. And just before the show, I realized that I couldn't find it backstage. But I needed coffee, right? I've got to be caffeinated so the show can work. So I legged it over the road and I tried to get a coffee. And I said, can you just lend me one of your crockery cups? And they went, that's not our policy. So I was like, oh Christ. So I broke a vow I'd made never to use, compostable cups. And I carried it across the street and I was like, I can't take this on stage. So then I found my reusable cup and I poured it in so that I wouldn't look like a bastard on stage. And then I walked on, did that for half the show and then admitted it. And it built this beautiful bridge because I was like, look, I've done the wrong thing and you understand why and I'm accepting it. And I think that makes the audience were like, oh, we get you even more. We love that you've risked the fact that we might hate you.
Yeah, I think most people must be like that with their approach to climate issues. We try and do stuff, and then we totally know we're doing this other stuff that's absolutely naughty.
Totally right. But I think one of the messages I'm keen to push is that if you try meat-free Mondays and you fuck up and go, oh, I can't bear it, and you have a burger, or you try and do like vegan one day a week, and then you're halfway through a coffee with dairy milk before you realise, it's not the end of the world. Forgive yourself. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to explode now. In many ways, one of the biggest problems with the climate is that nothing's going to explode right now. It's this long smear of things getting worse. So actually, to be kind to yourself and go, listen, we're in an enormously privileged situation, top 1% of, global income. We're in an enormously privileged position, and we have to sort of accept that. You always have to hold two things in your head at once with climate. You have to go, we're in serious trouble, but if we just run around screaming, it's not going to help. You've got to be, everyone I know who works in sustainability swings as I do from, and I'm sure people who don't, swing from mad hope, like this is going to be fine, we're going to suddenly believe in us, to enormous despair within the course of an hour. You have to sort of be able to compartmentalize those things and go, like with mental health, you have to go, this is a dark time, the black dog's here, the clouds overhead, I'll just keep my head down, I'll get through it. Oh, now this is a happy time and I can cope. So I think to answer your question, I think people definitely need to keep trying, even when you feel hopeless. You have to keep trying and keep trying.
Thank you. I'm sure a lot of the marketers in this room would like to know, what tips might you have when positioning and framing climate messages?
Well, I think that you can't scold them. You can't tell people off. You can't frighten them. There's Krista Mayer, who's the head of climate outreach at UCL, says that audiences need, or people listening to messages, they need agency. So his example is a great example. He says, if this room is on fire and I say the room's on fire, there's the exit, go to the exit, then people have agency and they take action. But if you say, the room's on fire and I don't know what we should all do, then they have no agency and they panic or feel scared or feel bad, but they don't do anything as a result of it. They don't take any action. So I think the key thing is to give people a really clear message that is honest and true and well-researched. And the climate's full of contradictions. There's loads of like, should we use this, should we use that? Dig into it, find some experts and talk to them, and try to keep your messaging clear and honest. Admit your own faults, admit that that you can get things wrong as well, as an organization, maybe as an agency or as a client, to accept that, listen, we haven't always done this the right way. I think that's that kind of authentic vulnerability. We're trying to do our best, and it's obviously confusing. So I think framing things in that kind of way is important, and also to accept that you personally may not be able to save the world. Like, I think that's another barrier to action. You think, oh, well, I can't, what can I do? That's a huge hurdle, you know, what difference does it make if Taylor Swift's going to fly off in a private jet? What difference does it make what I do? And you have to remember, this joke isn't finished, but I'm trying to write a joke based around the idea that individual action is pointless. It's just as pointless as voting. Looks to audience, do you know what I mean? Because it does, all of those things add up. So to be honest and reveal yourself and give people a sort of a hopeful call to action that says you can do this and it will make a difference and you've got to believe.
Great, thanks. I mean, we're at the moment, given the current president in the States, we're in a new era, perhaps, of climate change denial.
Aren't we
mean, how do you overcome resistance from even audiences about climate messaging?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know how to overcome the resistance you get from the current American administration. I don't know who does know that. I think that, God, I mean, that's kind of outside of my purview, I'm afraid to say. But I do think one of the things I can do is you can help. Even if you're not saving the world yourself, some people are, and you can help them. Something I find enormously invigorating is if I work in, corporate environments or to support sustainability departments of big organizations, because they're doing the proper work, I go in and do the show and make them feel it more viscerally or differently or laugh at it or laugh at themselves. And they come up to me afterwards and go, oh my God, thank you, I needed that. This is just relentless grind. So maybe I can do shows for the opposition that are going to try and unseat Trump. But of course, that is a huge problem. The resistance I have to overcome more normally is in audiences in a chicken in a basket comedy club on a Friday night, or at a gig where, maybe I'm doing a corporate gig for some bankers or some people who really don't, there's the last thing on their mind. You have to build a relationship with them, and you have to, how do you position it? I suppose what you have to do is you have to find what works for you, what works for your skill set. So I'm funniest when I'm silly. I'm less funny when I'm panicky and like the first 6 months, I was just dying on my arse in comedy clubs on a Friday night going, I'm going to talk about the climate. No, really. And then actually attempting a new joke about ocean acidification. It was really hard. You need practice. You need to let yourself off the hook. It is hard. Yeah. But I think that learning how to engage with your strongest suit, your strongest voice. Like, I'm funniest when I'm silly. So if I can learn to be silly despite the potential trudginess or darkness of the subject matter, there's no good me going on and going, here's a hard-hitting point that I'm making and you suck. I've got to say, I've got a joke about how we get excited about one solution. So we go, kelp. Kelp sequesters carbon 30 times faster than trees. Let's build huge kelp farms in the ocean, but then it destabilizes the local ecosystem and it's too dark on the surface of the sea, and underneath it, all the fish, they get discombobulated and they sleep in and they're late for work at the bubble factory. Do you know what I mean? I can make a point about kelp and sequestering carbon whilst making a stupid joke at the same time.
Great. Stuart Goldsmith, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Climate comedian, thank you so much.
Cheers. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.
Right. Thank you, Stuart.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you very much.